Hello and welcome back to Seeing Dementia Differently. My name is Cece, and for today's carers conversation, we are joined by the lovely Sean. And Sean is currently a young dementia carer for his father-in-law, Steve, who has a diagnosis of vascular dementia. So, Sean, would you like to tell us a little bit more about your story?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Sean, as Stacey just said. I'm looking after my father-in-law. He got diagnosed back last October with vascular dementia and Alzheimer's. So obviously I'll give up my job full time to obviously support him. As obviously we had several discussions about obviously care going forward and when the time comes and as things deteriorate. Obviously he didn't want to go into a home, and I've worked in several care homes and with dementia and stuff. And don't get me wrong, they do an amazing job, but I wouldn't want that for him either. And obviously he didn't want that. So yeah, just on the journey now, and obviously living with us at the moment, me and my husband, obviously his son. And then we're moving back to his house soon, just having some work done, obviously getting things right for what needs doing and stuff like that. And yeah, I'm just kind of taking it day by day. Even though I've got all the experience, when it's I can't I want to say something, I can't explain what I want to say, but it just hits different because it's not a stranger, is it? It's someone really close, and
Yeah.
yeah,
I
it's
was going to
just
ask you about that actually. Obviously, having that background in care and having worked with people with dementia before, what was the biggest difference for you in finding out that it was so close to home?
we live in this world, and you just think, oh, it's never going to happen to someone in my family or me, but the truth is, it can happen to anyone. Obviously, I give everything to the residents and the service users I used to look after in the past, and I go above and beyond. And sometimes I'd come home, and it would be on my mind, and it got to a point where had to step back after so many years because it was not controlling my life, but I was just constantly worried going home. Oh, I hope so and so's had their dinner and they've had their medication or X, Y, Z. But I think obviously now with my father-in-law, it's well, like I say, we never expected that. Obviously we knew something was wrong, obviously, but you try not to think about that. And yeah, it's just hard because
Mm.
obviously Sean lost his mum when he was young, and now his like his dad is every day is slowly deteriorating, and it's just heartbreaking. It really is.
And how did you actually receive the news that Steve had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's and vascular dementia?
So basically, Sean's older brother, so I was working at the time, so obviously I couldn't get the time off. Sean was at work. So Sean's older brother took him, and the conversation just went, well, we've looked at the results, the scan, the tests, everything, and this is what you've got: vascular dementia, Alzheimer's. Went through all the changes, obviously, in his brain, obviously the plaque build-up and stuff like that, and that was it, and it was kind of left at that. And since then, there's been, well, no comment. There's been nothing. I've been chasing them, um, so it was just kind of like that. And then I think his dad kind of took himself to a place where he didn't want to admit it or acknowledge it, whereas he knows something's obviously not right. But
I remember even with my dad, he didn't really want to accept the diagnosis himself, and he certainly
yeah,
didn't want other people outside of, immediate family and the people who needed to know having that information, which did make it slightly harder to then access certain types of support because
yeah,
if the
of
person with
course,
the diagnosis doesn't want to engage, you can't very well be dragging them along to things as a carer saying, yeah, but it's in your best interest. So it can feel
yeah,
very difficult when you're kind of stuck in that place of you're trying to
yeah,
have
of
these
course.
conversations to support the person, but at the same time, they don't really want to engage in these conversations.
There's things when I sit there, I'll lie in bed at night and I think, oh, could I have done that? Could I have done this? And then I just think you have to be nice to yourself and kind because we're all human and we can only do the best of what we can do. And
Yeah.
but you still have those thoughts, all the time, and it's just yeah, it's a roller coaster, I suppose.
With many people who've got younger onset or rarer forms of dementia, the
Yeah,
diagnostic journey can take a while. And even if that part
yeah.
doesn't, getting assessments and care support can take a while. So I'm wondering what your
Oh,
experience has been.
yeah. So obviously Sean, obviously 'cause my husband's called Sean as well, funnily enough. He took his dad to an appointment, and they did some like memory tests and stuff like that, and then blood tests. Had to keep going back for different things, but in between, it was like it was months, if not like weeks, months, back and forth. Need a brain scan, MRI, is what they said, and then nothing come for about 6 months, I think. After that, we were waiting, obviously chasing. Things were obviously deteriorating. Obviously, we were both. Well, Sean still is in employment, but I was working at the time full time, and obviously Steve was at home, and it was just that constant worry. Well, we can't do anything because we don't know if it's definitely confirmed. Even though I knew deep down in my heart, all the signs were there, and
Yeah.
his parents had it as well. So Sean's and granddad both had dementia at a young age. So it was kind of, I was thinking, well, I don't want to presume that it is, but it's very likely with the past of his parents and what's happening and the symptoms and what's going on. And then it's kind of like back to the appointment where his older brother took his dad there to get the results. It's kind of, you've got this and this and goodbye kind of thing, and that was it. And still to this day, I'm chasing for simple things like a capacity assessment. So like things like the will and his wishes for after, when the inevitable does happen. And it ran me actually last week after 8 months of me non-stop. It's been yeah. Would you still like this? Blah blah blah. I'm like, well, to be honest with you, no, because he won't pass it now.
Yeah.
And then they're saying, oh, it's £480 and it's not offered for free. I said, that's fine. I said, I'm aware of that. I was told that 8 months ago. I said, but 8 months ago, he would have passed to a degree, fluctuating capacity. And so it kind of ended a bit sour. And I wasn't rude, but I just got a bit het up because I just think you're ringing me now and you're saying, you want this money and to do this, this, and this. But the
Yeah.
fact of the matter is, it's not. There's no point in spending that money now because he's not gonna. What for you to tell me he hasn't got capacity, and well, I know that.
Yeah.
But
I think
obviously,
you've
yeah,
touched on something really important there as well that we maybe don't talk about enough in terms of dementia care and particularly with these assessments, which is that feeling of being frustrated and being really
yeah,
annoyed because okay, I get it. You on the other end of the phone are not solely responsible for this assessment having been late, but you need to understand that for me as a carer who has been trying,
mm,
in your case, for eight
yeah,
months to try and get this sorted and being told the same information or being told you're put on a wait list or, in a
yeah.
couple of weeks, in a couple of months, of course you're going to get frustrated. And so it's not
Of course,
directed
it's
at that individual, but at the
yeah, and then
system
you feel bad
itself.
after. Yeah, I
Exactly.
always
Yeah,
feel,
you're left
and then
feeling guilty, thinking, oh, I
yeah.
shouldn't have said that to them. But equally, you are buried under trying to organize all of these assessments, trying to find
Well,
information for yourself.
yourself from personal experiences. You get one task done, and like you think in your head, oh, that's ticked off, and then you've got this, and this, and then it's like, oh, I forgot to do that, and I need to do this, and it's hard to kind of. I can feel myself getting it. It's really hard because people don't understand. People do understand, but it's. I don't know. I just feel like I constantly doubt myself sometimes, and I know I shouldn't, and I'm doing a great job, and I know I am. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
yeah, a bit rubbish at times.
It is a very heavy feeling and it like you said it just piles on. You think, well, I was trying to get this ticked off the list today, get it out of my
Yeah,
mind, sorted, and instead it's just become this rolling issue that I can't seem to resolve. And the
yeah,
worst part is it doesn't seem like there's anyone there to give you any guidance on like how to resolve it or to make the process easier
yeah.
either.
Well, there's been. I mean, they told us there'd be like a social assessment by social services, and where they come to the house, they see the environment that you live in and the support, etc., etc.
Mm,
I mean, there's not been one call in
yeah,
regards to getting that done, and I mean, we're now in May, and it's just terrible. And I just think for those people who haven't maybe got that family support around them, and
yeah.
people that want to help and care, I'd hate to think what happens to like to people with that haven't got that support and family. It just blows my mind. It really does.
Exactly. You do worry because you think even for the people that are, out there living by themselves with a diagnosis, probably a lot of them without a diagnosis because maybe they've not noticed symptoms and changes like people who are living in
Yeah,
households would have other family members to notice for them. So
yeah, of
yeah,
course.
it's this heaviness that you feel sad for your individual situation, but there's also, I think, this collective grief almost amongst all of us as dementia
Yeah,
carers, knowing that
definitely.
it sucks, that you and I can jump on a call and both of us be sat here like, yeah, I totally get what you mean. The same thing happened
Yeah.
to us. Like, it shouldn't be that way. That shouldn't be the
Well,
norm.
when will it change? It's just, is it going to change?
Exactly.
If someone was diagnosed with cancer, you have an urgent pathway for 2 weeks to, get things done, this and this done. Oh, I know from working obviously at several hospitals,
Yeah,
that's the protocol. So why not the same for something like dementia, Alzheimer's, all the other horrible diseases that are out there? I just don't understand. But why not? Why is it not important?